Last month, my feed was flooded with clips and videos from the new Game of Thrones prequel, A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. A lot of people have been really hyping up the show, saying things like it's their new favorite show and it's better than Game of Thrones. So I caved to the media storm and I watched the show, and I've got to talk some shit about this. But first, let me be positive. The show has several good characters that are interesting and fun. Egg, Baylor, and the Laughing Storm, all strong characters. The story at its core is solid, and the show is entertaining. So I'm not hating if this is your new favorite show. But does it deserve the sweeping praise that I'm seeing across the internet? I'm going to have to say no. I think there are several areas that are really holding the show back from being great. The most noticeable problem with the show is the overuse of vulgarity and immature fart jokes that do little to nothing for the show. By the 5th episode, I was beginning to feel like Adam Sandler may have directed this. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not a highfalutin snob. Adam Sandler has his place. But the vulgar and immature farting and shitting jokes, I think, are a real mismatch for a show that actually wants to take itself very seriously while presenting in the drama category. Now, you could argue that part of the vulgarity is playing to the fact that many of the characters are supposed to be crass and uneducated, but then again, you have characters like Prince Maekar using a similar uneducated, crass style that overuses the word fuck.
Fuck me. Fuck me. Fuck him. What the fuck? Fucking fuck off. What the fuck? Fucking fuck!
Some people might argue further that he is overtly crass because he's an expectant prince and a bit angry playing second fiddle to Baylor. At that point, though, I think those arguments are getting into a lot of excuses for what is actually a legitimate lack of artistic styling that has been replaced with mundane shitting and farting and saying fuck. Fundamentally, it's just not very funny. South Park taught us a lesson about this.
Besides, too much use of a dirty word takes away from its impact.
Structurally for this show, I have to say that the pacing feels off. I would argue that it's a bit too quick for its own good, not giving enough time for the character development to bake in. Without giving too much away, the relationships between the characters basically blossom immediately. It feels like lifelong friendships are made with such little interaction that it is a bit more unbelievable than dragons flying around. I'm going to assume that these issues can mainly be attributed to budget constraints and perhaps lack of source material. Likewise, I think the shot composition also reflects the desire for the show to save money. The shot composition is challenged. I felt that it was novice and amateurish at times. This really stood out to me in the tournament sections where they're using similar battle effects that Game of Thrones employed by giving a narrow range of view and also a narrow field of view with quick, tight close-up shots, which is partially intended to get the audience in the shoes of the characters, feeling the fear and chaos of not being able to see during the intensity of a battle. This would be generally fine, but also, you need to let me see because I'm the audience. I want to see what happens. Yes, this would almost certainly cost more money, but I'm not believing that this franchise is really so strapped. I think by having such a narrow range in shot composition, they missed a big opportunity to do amazing things. I'd point to other battle scenes from things like Saving Private Ryan or Lord of the Rings, where they make a really big effort to show the scale of what's happening, and they're made better for it. My biggest personal gripe is that the music selection is noticeably terrible. There were two parts that stood out like Scooby-Doo level music selection. In particular, the use of the song 16 Tons and the original orchestral piece entitled I Cut It Off Brother were atrocious score selections that did not fit the scenes that they were assigned. It was as if they had asked a cheap AI to pick the musical score for these sections. Whoever was responsible for greenlighting these parts should abandon all creative aspects of their career. 16 Tons is a period song that is most relevant to 1940s coal miners. The styling of the song is for early America and post-World War II settings. It is not at all appropriate for a medieval fantasy setting. This would be akin to playing Push It to the Limit while Anakin Skywalker is doing lightsaber training. It's totally egregious and completely unhinged. If you really wanted a song about class struggle that badly, a more appropriate song might have been the first minute of Rolling Stone's Salt of the Earth. The first verse of that song would at least not be so jarringly out of place. However, that song would probably be more expensive to license. Out of the 22 original tracks composed by Dan Romer, track 10 entitled Cut It Off Brother stood out the most because everything else was designed as unnoticeable background music, whereas track 10 was meant to be front and center. The problem is that the track did not capture the feeling of the moment at all. It was paired with camera cutting the likes of which you would see in a drama parody. The poor pairing overshadowed how interesting the moment was, and it comes off as goofy and out of place. For me, it spoiled the moment completely. And I've looked into his other work. Dan Romer is simply not my type of composer. My bias going into this show is that I enjoy watching knights and swords and dragons. I should like this type of show, no question, but the gap between the hype and the reality left me feeling disappointed. I didn't set out to make a review of this show, but I felt compelled to do so because I had strong feelings that were counter to the claims that others were making. My theory is that the praise for the show is partially a result of an entertainment-starved audience that is more willing to accept mediocrity from major studios and showrunners. I've been thinking that it's a bad sign of the times we're living in that there's so much garbage entertainment out there that gets universally despised that when a show like this starts to give people a little bit of hope, they're latching onto it and it turns into bandwagon praise, even though the show is just kind of average. If you don't have any other smash hits on your watch list, then this show is fine, but I wouldn't recommend it as must-see television. Before I end the video, I want to say I think it's very likely that people will disagree with me on this video. And it's totally fine to disagree with me and thumbs down the video. I've got a big variety of ideas and topics that I'd like to pursue on this channel. So if this wasn't the right video for you, I'm sure that eventually I'll make something that you like.